We're going to get right into it. If you've been online or watched television, then I'm sure you've seen a number of ads from lawyers targeting women that have used hair relaxers. So there's a lot of scary ads out there about hair relaxers, and here's a typical ad. Women and family members of women who have suffered from uterine cancer and breast cancer and have a history of regular use of hair relaxers may be entitled to compensation through filing hair relaxer cancer lawsuits. So this is pretty scary because I'm sure if you're watching this, then you know someone who has used hair relaxers, or you yourself may have used hair relaxers, right? So as someone who has used relaxers myself from the time I was about 7 years old, on and off through adulthood, it was definitely personal for me to find out what is going on. Are relaxers really dangerous for us? And why are women still using them if they are that dangerous? And so I wanted to do my own research. What do the articles say out there? What does the research say out there? What do the journals say out there? You know, what's real, what's fake? Are lawyers just trying to make money? Are we just being scared into not buying relaxers? Or is some of this information valid? So anyway, I'm going to share with you what I learned because I was actually quite surprised, to be honest. It's up to you to make your own decision. I am not here to pass judgment as to why you relax your hair or why you don't relax your hair. This is something in particular Black and Hispanic women have been doing for years, for decades. Our mothers have done this and they have passed it on to us. And so again, I'm not here to pass judgment. This information is for educational purposes only and entertainment purposes. So if you want medical advice, I am a doctor, but I am not your doctor. So I strongly urge you to see your doctor and also to see your stylist and discuss your options with them. Okay? So these lawsuits are going to be very, very large. And some of the companies that have been, or manufacturers that have been named, are names that we know, like L'Oreal, Dark and Lovely, Motions, and a number of others. So the basis of the lawsuits is the fact that scientists have known for years that there are a number of chemicals in hair products and in hair relaxers that cause cancer, and that none of these boxes, when you buy a box of relaxer, there is no warning on the boxes that state, you know, that you might be at risk for breast, uterine, or ovarian cancer. I mean, when was the last time you picked up a box of relaxer? Next time, go look at it. There are warnings on there, and there are, like, you know, dangers highlighted, but nowhere does it say there is a risk of breast, uterine, or ovarian cancer to you. And so that is the basis of the lawsuit, because again, they're saying that scientists and these manufacturers have known for years that many of the chemicals in their products are causing cancer. And in particular, these lawsuits are being targeted to Black and Hispanic women, primarily because they are the consumers. They are the ones that are mostly using relaxers, right? So after doing a little research, I found the actual journal article where the information about the dangers of hair relaxers came from. I'll be looking down at my notes. It is from the Journal of National Cancer Institute. So JNCI, Journal of National Cancer Institute, Volume 114, Issue 12, December 2022. So this was quite recent, and pages 1636 through 1644. So the study basically found that women who frequently use chemical hair relaxers and straighteners could have a higher risk of developing uterine cancer than those who have not used the products. So the study tracked about 34,000 participants, women, nationwide between the ages of 35 to 74 for over a decade, for over 10 years. So it was found that the risk among women of all racial backgrounds had increased, but it was more pronounced among Black women. So this study was done at a time when the rates of uterine cancer have gone up in the country as a whole. But what they found was that although the numbers of uterine cancer across the board have gone up, it has gone up significantly higher among Black women in particular. So, and it states the risk was found in women of all racial backgrounds, but it might be more pronounced among Black women. 60% of the participants who said they used hair straighteners identified as Black women. Wow. You know, the thing is, our mothers did not know this information. Our ancestors or our grandparents didn't know this information. Now we know this information. What are we going to do about it? Wow. I also want to point out that the study noted that use of other hair products, including dyes and permanents, or products to cause body waves or other hair products in general, was not associated with the incidence of uterine cancer. So the focus of the study was mostly uterine cancer. They wanted to see if hair relaxers can cause uterine cancer or can promote uterine cancer. So again, they did not find other hair products, including dyes, or permanent dyes, causing uterine cancer. But I will say previous studies have found a link between ovarian cancer and breast cancer with hair straighteners, or that hair straighteners have been linked to breast cancer and ovarian cancer. And again, there were no warnings on these boxes, and most of us continue to use hair relaxers. So it's only now that they're also trying to show that endometrial cancer may be linked to hair relaxers, but that previously it has already been shown that breast cancer and ovarian cancer was linked to hair relaxers. I don't know, for me it just kind of blows my mind that we use it so casually and so frequently, especially among the Black community, and it just gives me reason to pause, especially with these new studies and new results. So what do we know about endometrial cancer? Endometrial cancer is one of the most common GYN cancers to affect women. And endometrial cancer typically happens in women over 60, but not exclusively. Younger women can get endometrial cancer as well. And what's interesting again is that the rates of endometrial cancer have been going up in the United States, but it is particularly worrisome in the Black community or among Black women. And when Black women are twice as likely to die from endometrial cancer. And so they don't really know the reason why that is. And I'll read this quote. Black women have a higher risk of developing endometrial cancer and also have a worse survival rate compared to white women, says Dr. Ursula Martulonis, Chief of GYN Oncology at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, Professor of Medicine at Harvard Medical School. So it hasn't been, another quote of hers that I found interesting is that it hasn't been fully explained why that's happening, but it has definitely been observed. One thing that is clear when you talk about endometrial cancer is that it is, again, hormonally responsive. So the levels of estrogen and progesterone exposure definitely affect the risk of endometrial cancer. And I'll say this differently. Exposure to excess estrogen and hormonal imbalance and estrogen and progesterone have been identified as key risk factors for uterine cancer. So in short, exposure to excess estrogen and progesterone has been significantly noted to increase the risk of endometrial cancer. And again, a lot of these relaxers have chemicals in them that are similar to these hormones and considered hormone disruptors. So the important thing to note about uterine cancer right now, as of January 2023, is that there is no screening test. So it's very important for women to know the symptoms, right? And so the main symptoms are, particularly in postmenopausal women or women who have stopped having a period after whatever age that is. It might be on average 50, 51, 52. Some women still have a period up to 54. But if you know that you have stopped having a period and you start bleeding at least 12 months after that period, then that would be a significant concern. So any significant bleeding or spotting after you know that you have gone through menopause and your doctor has told you you are menopausal and you no longer have a period. So you should not have bleeding after you have gone through menopause. Now, also for the younger women who may still have a period, it is also of concern when you have spotting in between your period, or if you're having extremely heavy periods that you are not accustomed to in between your periods. Basically, any unusual bleeding out of your typical pattern, assuming you're not on any, different medication or different birth control forms that may alter your period. So definitely discuss that with your primary care physician or your OBGYN physician. So according to the study, some of the chemicals that were found to promote cancer, which are found in some of our hair products and also relaxers, were formaldehyde and formaldehyde releasing chemicals, which were found in some straighteners, and oxidized paraphenylenediamine and 4-aminobiphenyl in hair dyes have also played a potential role in carcinogenesis, supporting an association between hair product use and cancer development. Now, be honest, how many of us actually look at these boxes to look for these actual ingredients in them before we use the products? I would say that majority of American women don't look for these names, right? Or even if you saw these names, you probably wouldn't recognize them, right? So I think it's really crucial then for manufacturers to put on the boxes what the actual risks are to the consumer. Instead of burying all these chemicals on the boxes and then, showing you these fancy, glamorous women using the hair products and never telling you how dangerous they are. Now, some of you may not have the patience to read through the scientific journal, but you can definitely find some other relevant and informative articles about hair relaxers and interviews with some of the scientists that conducted the study. For example, I found one in Allure magazine and I thought it was really good. They interviewed the lead oncologist, GYN oncologist and study lead author, and basically asked her, what does this all mean? What does this, study mean that has come out about relaxers? And this is per Dr. Susan Modesti. Dr. Susan Modesti, director of the GYN oncology division at Emory University. She said, "The numbers are scary, but it helps to put these findings into context. While the study data are statistically significant, they present what's ultimately a small attributable or extra risk."
So, are you willing to take that risk, even if it's small? That's the question. Now, I also wanted to make sure you understand that we're not suggesting, or I am not suggesting, that every case of endometrial cancer is likely directly a result of relaxers. No. In fact, the majority of people with endometrial cancer are obese or have excessive weight, and that excessive weight or fat converts their natural testosterone into excessive amounts of estrogen, eventually leading to cancer growth.
I also found another important article in the NIH, or National Institute of Health, has a news release that they put out in October 2022, just last year, a few months ago. And the title was "Hair Straightening Chemicals Associated with Higher Uterine Cancer Risk."
In another publication that actually came out this month, January 6, 2023, per the NIH record, if you look at the second page, second paragraph, it states chemical exposure from hair product use, especially straighteners, could be more concerning than other personal care products due to the increased absorption through the scalp, which may be exacerbated by burns and lesions caused by straighteners. We all know, if you've ever relaxed your hair, that sometimes you get scabs and burns on your scalp. In the recent study, it does not appear that they distinguish between the different types of relaxers. There was no mention of whether it was lye or no-lye relaxer. So what does that even mean? When people say, oh, I used a no-lye relaxer, what does that mean? Well, apparently the difference has to do with the main active ingredient. The main active ingredient in lye relaxer is sodium hydroxide. Apparently, this means that the relaxer works faster or processes faster than a no-lye relaxer, which often leads to more scalp irritation and chemical burning, which is not to say that a no-lye relaxer won't give you a chemical burn either. They both do. It's just one does it to a higher degree than the other. In no-lye relaxers, the active ingredient is calcium hydroxide instead of sodium hydroxide. And no-lye relaxers are usually a little milder and great for sensitive scalps, but apparently it tends to dry the hair out a little bit more. So that's the main difference, but even with no-lye relaxers, you can still get chemical burns.
So I found it interesting when they asked the researchers what should women currently do if they're worried about their risk factor or if they're worried about endometrial cancer. They said that women should reduce the use of their products, or they should reduce the use of the relaxers to less than 4 times a year.
If you go back to the original study, you'll see they often mention that the risk of cancer went up with people who use relaxers regularly. So what was regularly? Regularly was anyone who used a relaxer more than 4 times a year. So if you look at the recommendations, they're asking you to use it less than 4 times a year. In this particular article, the expert says that you should consider limiting the use of relaxers to only 2 to 3 times a year. Just think about that. That means that you would realistically need to spread out your relaxer use every 4 to 6 months.
So stop and think about that realistically. If you have type 4C hair in general, at least from what I know in the Black community, in general, when we relax our hair, we do it more than 4 times a year, right? Because the average woman, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, relaxes her hair about every 6 to 8 weeks, right? Which means that you are typically relaxing your hair more than 4 times a year. And so the reason we do that often, from my understanding, is as your curly hair grows out, the bond between the curly hair and the straight hair weakens and your hair tends to break when you wait too long. So for people who tend to stretch out their relaxers and, stretch in between putting, relaxers in their hair weakens and it breaks. And for many, that's just not a preferred look, to have very thin, straight ends and then thick roots. So they tend to relax their hair again as soon as they see new growth. But the point is that according to the researchers, what is considered typical frequent use is anything over 4 times a year. Therefore, in my opinion, having to relax your hair less than 4 times a year may not be realistic for most, unless you have already, type 3 or straightish type textured hair that may not break off as easily. That's definitely something to consider. Or you may consider not relaxing your hair entirely. That is your, again, your choice.
That was me 2 years ago after doing a big chop and cutting off all my relaxed hair. And this is sometime last year with a twist out. Completely natural, no relaxer, and no hair color, which is why you can see a lot of my grays.
So now with the information that you know, because at this time you cannot say you don't know that relaxers present a risk of cancers, and in particular endometrial cancer. Are you planning to cut back on the amount of times that you relax your hair? Are you planning to stop relaxing your hair, or are you planning to continue relaxing your hair because you don't believe that that risk of cancer applies to you? So what about pregnant women? Are you still using relaxer while you're pregnant? Is it safe to relax your hair while you're pregnant? I don't know the real answer to that. I will say that many years ago, I did not have the information that we now have. And I know that I relaxed my hair during my pregnancy. But if I knew then what I knew now, I don't think I would have relaxed my hair. And I definitely don't think I would color my hair. But again, I know a number of women who color their hair and straighten their hair during pregnancy. I did see a relevant quote in a magazine by an author that said, "It is no secret that hair relaxers contain harsh chemicals that can be absorbed through the skin. So for your sake and the baby's, it is best to err on the side of caution and let your hair go au naturel until the end of your pregnancy." However, there has been no definitive research on pregnant women. And of course, there's no definitive research on pregnant women, because think about how unethical that would be to willingly expose pregnant women to something that could potentially be dangerous. You know, take a group of women and expose them to hair dyes and hair relaxers, and then have another group that is not exposed just for a study. Obviously, that would be unethical. So it is going to be up to you to use your judgment as to whether or not it is appropriate to use relaxers or hair dyes during pregnancy. And honestly, also for myself personally, when I weigh the risks versus the benefits of using relaxers, the risks, in my opinion, totally outweigh the benefits, because there's so many different ways now that you can style your hair and still look professional and still look beautiful and well put together. I mean, you can do crochet braids, you can wear your hair natural. If your hair is too challenging for you, you can cut it and wear it short. You can wear braids, you can straighten it with heat, you can wear wigs. I mean, there are so many different options out there nowadays to wear your hair without resorting to chemically straightening it. But again, like I said before, it is up to your discretion, and you know what is best for you. All I am doing is presenting the information, and of course it is somewhat biased by my own experience and by my own opinion. Yes, I do get that. Anyway, thank you for listening, and I hope you found this informative, or at least thought-provoking, and allows you to ask some more questions. Definitely do your own research, look it up for yourself. These articles are available online. The studies are there. Open your eyes, open your ears. The studies are out there. And please share this information or this video with someone who might find it interesting or important or relevant. Please share it with them. The information that the scientists have presented and the researchers have presented, and the lawsuits that are out there, and how it's going to change Black women's lives and Hispanic women's lives or Latin women's lives, how it's going to change the hair industry, how it's going to change the packaging. Will they start putting on the boxes now or on the packaging that, you know, there is a risk of cancer? Will we start seeing that? I don't know. We'll see. Let me know what you think. I am definitely interested to know what you think. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up, and I will see you later.